Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of John. Today we're in John chapter 6. We're going to read verses 14 and 15. Now Jesus has just performed the miracle of the feeding of the multitude. With 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish, he had fed thousands of people. We're told there were 5,000 men in the crowd. That doesn't count the women and the children, so there are thousands of people that he's fed with these 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now, the verses we're looking at today talk about how the crowd responded to this miraculous sign. So that's chapter 6, verses 14 and 15. Now, after the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." But Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. Now notice the crowd begins to say, "Surely, certainly, he must be the prophet. He must be the prophet who is to come." Now what does that mean? What is that in reference to? Well, they're talking about a messianic prophecy that goes all the way back to Moses. So you have to look to the book of Deuteronomy. And you remember the book of Deuteronomy is Moses' last word to the children of Israel. And in chapter 18, verse 15, Moses spoke to the people about a day when a prophet like him would come. So Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15. "Now the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you, from your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him." So Moses told of a day when a prophet like him would come, and the people must listen to the prophet. Now, they always understood that to be a messianic prophecy, that the Messiah would be the prophet. And there was a longing and a hunger for him to come and an expectation. You remember back in chapter 1 of the Gospel of John, when John the Baptist was involved in his ministry of preparation, that's one of the questions the leaders of the Jewish people asked John. They came to him and said, "Are you the prophet? Are you the prophet?" The prophet Moses said would come. The prophet who is the Messiah. Now, of course, John the Baptist said, "No, I am not the prophet. I am not him. I prepare the way for him. I am the one who prepares the way." So see, there was that expectation that Moses' prophecy would be fulfilled. The Messiah would come. He would be the prophet like Moses. And so the crowd begins to murmur after this feeding of the thousands, remembering how Moses in the wilderness, the manna that came from heaven. Is this Jesus? Is he the prophet? Surely, they said, he must be the prophet. But notice Jesus withdrew from them and went into a mountain. Now, why did he do that? Because Jesus was the prophet. And he was the Messiah. So why did he withdraw from the crowd when they began to say these things? Because though they were perceiving that perhaps he might be the prophet, that is correct, they had a misunderstanding of what the prophet would do and what he would be like. Notice it says, Jesus knew they intended to come and make him king by force. They were going to coerce him into being their king. You see, that the expectation was that when the Messiah would come, he would be a military-style ruler. He would be like an earthly king. He would be like another David, and he would restore the kingdom of Israel. He would rally the Israelites in an army. He would throw off the Roman oppression, and he would restore the glory of the days of David, the golden age of Israel when David was king. That's what they were thinking in terms of that kind of military ruler, that kind of political king. And although Jesus was and is the prophet, he is the Messiah, he was not coming as that sort of Messiah. He was coming to bring his kingdom, but as he would later tell Pilate, "My kingdom is not of this world." It's not a military realm. It's not a political dominion. My kingdom is a spiritual reality of letting God rule in your life. And he was a Messiah who had come not to conquer the people by force, but by love, by giving himself in sacrificial love on the cross of Calvary. That's what the people did not understand. And so they were going to acclaim him as king, and that is not the way Jesus was walking. And so he withdraws from them. So the sign was there. The sign, the miracle that pointed to him as the Messiah. It's just that the people had the wrong idea about who the Messiah was and what kind of Messiah he would be. Now later on in the chapter, Jesus is going to have a lot of discussion about his role as the Messiah and how he would bring bread to the world like Moses brought the manna. But it's a different kind of bread than what they expect. But we'll see that in a few days. Join us tomorrow as we continue our 5-minute Bible study in the Gospel of John.